I'm Steve Lascalzo, and this is The Way. Welcome to This is The Way podcast's 3 BBY Story Arc First Impressions podcast for Andor, A Star Wars Story, Season 2. This block of episodes, 4, 5, and 6, take place sometime a year after the events of 1, 2, and 3. The first 3 episodes all debuted Tuesday, April 22nd, and the next 3, the most recent 3, Tuesday, April 29th. They drop around 9 p.m. Eastern each week until the finale is revealed May 13th. If this is your first time joining me for a podcast, thank you so much. You're going to hear my honest opinions on this channel. When I like Star Wars, I say so. When I don't, I'm not afraid to stand out or lose listeners. I don't rubber stamp everything as wonderful. I don't hate things just because everyone else seems to. I started this podcast because I was excited about a brand new show on a brand new streaming service. That was The Mandalorian on Disney Plus more than 5 years ago. I continued with shows like The Book of Boba Fett, Obi-Wan Kenobi, Ahsoka, Skeleton Crew, and several animated episodes, and of course, Andor. If you have not seen all 6 episodes released so far for Season 2, please stop listening now until you have. I will not watch what I say about what's already been released. And this is not the episode-by-episode recap and discussion type of podcast episode. Those come later. So if you're ready to hear my first impressions of the stories that we got on April 29th, feet down, face forward, hands on head. On program. Tony Gilroy, showrunner, delegated this story arc to Beau Willimon. He wrote Ever Been to Gorman, I Have Friends Everywhere, and What a Festive Evening, 4, 5, and 6. Willimon is responsible for the Narkina 5 story arc in Season 1, Episodes 8, 9, and 10, including that No Way Out episode that had some of the most memorable speeches of the show's first season. The director for this block of shows, and the Tony Gilroy penned first block as well, is Ariel Kleiman. It's now BBY 3, and just like in Season 2, Episode 1, we got the Ferrix Anvil chimes, the years superimposed on the screen, and a reminder that this takes place 1 year later. Well, despite that being the title for Episode 1, not Episode 4. So that's probably going to be the trend moving forward for each story block. I would imagine that Episode 7 and Episode 10 will also have 1 year later, and then the year, your BBY, 2 BBY, 1 BBY. Maybe something different for the last one because it should lead up right up to Rogue One. So if you need another refresher, BBY stands for Before the Battle of Yavin. Just like BC is for Before Christ, or BCE, Before the Common Era. In universe, they didn't say BBY, just like they didn't say BC in like 10 BC. In our galaxy, here in our era, we didn't start using Anno Domini, or AD, until around the 6th century. So, in universe, they probably refer to the time as Year 15 of the Galactic Empire, or something like that. I feel like Palpatine would reimagine the calendar to celebrate his ascension and the near-complete victory over the Jedi. The Battle of Yavin has yet to happen in the show, just to reiterate. Yavin's where the rebels launched their attack against the first Death Star at the end of the first ever Star Wars movie, which later becomes Episode 4, A New Hope. We saw Yavin briefly in Episodes 1 and 2 of this season, as a matter of fact. In addition to what we see in these episodes, I might talk about the documentary segments that get released along with the story blocks each week. It's called Andor Declassified. This week's news segment is on world building, specifically, or especially rather, about Gorman. Last week's was called Time, and focused on the first 3 episodes. Do not watch those unless you've already seen the first episodes, but definitely watch those if you are up to date, which you probably are if you're listening here.
You think anybody's listening?
There does seem to be a new title theme for each episode. There have been through the first 6 episodes of Season 2, just like there were from Nicholas Britell in the 12 episodes of Season 1. They're variations on a theme, really. Episode 5 has a peculiar change, though, because the theme is cut short and there's radio static from Clea tuning into a listening device. Technically, it does start with the theme and it goes back to it a time or two and then ends with it, but it's very stylistic, much different than the others. There's maybe 5 to 10 seconds of recognizable theme music there, and the rest is just radio scrubbing. All 3 episodes of the second block are over 46 minutes with theme music, and 2 come real close to 47 minutes with theme music. Now, if you don't watch it, you have a 2-hour, 6-minute, and change movie if you put all 3 episodes of the first block together. And a 2-hour, almost 18-minute movie if you put all of the second block episodes together. So that's almost 12 minutes more in the second block than the first. And in total, we've got 4 hours and 24 minutes of showtime so far.
Showtime.
All right. This is the First Impressions podcast, so let's get to it. My first impression of the second story block was I did not like it. I feel like this was a big departure from Star Wars. Bigger even than the controversies from last week with the assault of Bix. I did not hate these episodes, and I'm not going to lump them in with the likes of The Acolyte or The Last Jedi. But the difference in tone was similar to how I felt the difference of tone was in those shows. So it wasn't different all of the time. It's just there were some departures for me. And I understand. Gilroy's trying to do something here, and I'm not trying to get in the way of his vision here. I don't think Williman's writing is bad. I just didn't feel good about Star Wars. I'm not talking about what the Empire was doing. This is just not the tone I'm looking for. Even if it's necessary to tell the story that Gilroy wants to tell. If the assault was too adult for some, this week might be too far.
Yeah, you're probably right.
I will be fair and disclose that it is possible that it's just me. It's possible that it's just the headspace that I was in when I watched the episodes. My household, This Is the Way podcast headquarters, has been under a lot of stress lately. Car troubles that are so mysterious it couldn't be fixed by 2 separate shops and is now being returned with a refund for work done. A new roof being put on with mistakes being made that, had I not been vigilant, would have probably gone unnoticed and resulted in an unfixable situation. Broken furniture in my office where I do my work. A messy house that's been progressively messier over months. Too many events on our social calendar and our just calendar in general. I've got 2 small girls. General stress from other places in our lives as well. And Tuesday night, my father was taken to the ER in an ambulance. He was stabilized, but as of Wednesday afternoon, he's still in the hospital. I didn't watch the new episodes at 9 o'clock. I saw them closer to midnight after a very long day. I don't know if all of that negatively affected my feelings on the show. I feel how I feel. I will say, though, I was looking forward to new Star Wars. It was set to be the bright spot of my day and my week. So perhaps the perception of a letdown, since I didn't like it, makes it feel worse than I would have felt if I was in a better headspace.
It's repeat listenings that cause the most damage.
I will start with what I liked. I very much liked anything Clea did. That shouldn't come as a surprise how much I liked that character. The intrigue of the listening device at Skolden's party was great. I liked all of her work. Every scene that she was in was a bright spot to me. I was a little apprehensive when I saw Benjamin Bratt playing Bail Organa instead of Jimmy Smits, but I have to say, I think it was remarkable that this felt like the same character to me. I liked it. I mean, it is the same character, but I cannot believe that I bought a totally different person as Bail Organa. I mean, after becoming familiar with him, not just in Revenge of the Sith, but Rogue One and Obi-Wan Kenobi 2, I thought it worked. I liked the Lonnie stuff too. I'm surprised that I became invested in this character after only meeting him briefly in season 1. The ISB meeting stuff was great. I liked the interactions there. Anton Lesser really does sell me and make all of the inner workings more credible to me. I liked the Krennic stuff at the party and the back and forth with Mon Mothma. The frustration with politicians and the arguments. It definitely has real-world parallels. I got to imagine both liberals and conservatives had chuckles with the way that they were arguing. I appreciated the French coding of the Gorman people. I mean, it was definitely coded Swiss, and there is French Swiss, but I really got French resistance, and the declassified episode really did hit that home. I was wondering if my ear for French had completely disappeared, because I was trying to translate the words in my head, even while there was stuff appearing on screen in subtitles. I recognized some of the French actors, so I was like, are they speaking French? I could not recognize a word. So it wasn't until I heard in the declassified section that, it was an invented language based on French sounds. I liked how developed Cyril's skill set has become. I thought the character work there was really good. It made sense. In the second block, after what we know, he's been living with Dedra, so it came off as believable that he was showing more tact here. I knew from the start that he was acting as a double agent for the ISB against the Gorman Front, but I think everybody did. I thought the charade at the field office in Palma was great. I liked how good Andor has gotten in the spy thing, too. I appreciated the dressing down he gave the Gorman group for making so many obvious mistakes. I thought he sold me on his skill and the gullibility of this fledgling resistance. He was good in the first block and even better here. I also liked the resolution of the Bix and Dr. Gore story. Just the resolution. I didn't need to see a lot of resolution. What I got was plenty, right? There's no way Gorst saw that coming. No way to defend against it if there was some planning. But it did all rely on that shot of Andor joining her walking at the end. Without him, there is no way I believe she pulls that off. But with him, makes perfect sense.
It's a treasure for the true aficionado.
Things that confused me. Which is the Gorman massacre? The Tarkin stuff threw me. I know Tarkin was responsible for the one in Legends. But I thought they already established a new canon with Rebels. So I think I get now. The first one was years ago, and another one is coming. So they're both massacres, but the one we see in Rebels, or when we hear about, we don't see it. It wasn't immediately obvious what was going on. I'm not sure now if Gilroy is going to change canon again. Another thing confusing. What's responsible for Saw's mental issues now? Is it paranoia or is it this fuel? Rhydonium has appeared before. Most memorably for me was in Rebels. But then I did some research and I pulled up The Mandalorian Chapter 15, The Force Awakens, The Bad Batch, and a lot of episodes of The Clone Wars. I just don't remember it from there. Why was this chosen? Why did they decide to go this route? Doesn't make a lot of sense to me. I want to say I didn't like it, but I didn't like it for a different reason. At the very beginning of that first scene with Wilman Pak, I thought, this is where he gets the Borgullet. This is where Guerrera gets the Borgullet. He said, is she healthy? But he was referring to the tool. And like I said, the later breathing troubles that we see in Rogue One, they're not from an accident, but because he was huffing? Come on.
Pausing for data lag.
Things I didn't like. Well, a lot. First and foremost, the Cinta and Vel stuff. I don't hate anyone. I'm a Christian. I'm also a sinner. And I'm called to love others like myself. But I'm sorry, I don't feel this belongs in Star Wars. It didn't in Rise of Skywalker for me, and it doesn't belong here either. I didn't like the stuff between Bix and Cassian either. I didn't like that kissing. And I also didn't like the way Cyril and Dedra's turn off the lights scene played either. I want a little bit more subtlety in Star Wars. The assault last week, I can explain that as an example of what the Empire is doing to the galaxy. It can fit. And the way it played out, it worked for me. This? No. Hard pass on all of that. The drugs. Did not like that. Both the way the Rhydonium fumes were used, substance abuse, with Saw and Willman, and the drugs that Bix was taking. I think there needed to be a bigger turnaround from Bix, either before she killed Gorse, like get off the drugs before and see her progressing because she's gearing up to do that, or maybe they could have killed him earlier in the story arc, and then we see that pulls her out of her funk. But I still think substance abuse was the wrong story to tell here. I'm not saying they can't do it. I just say I don't like what I saw. I didn't hate all of the Willman stuff. The traitor story was well told to me. But I feel like, even though everybody watching it saw it coming from a mile away, right? We all saw this. I thought that part was okay. I mean, he wasn't a traitor. Think about it. The Empire would have attacked much sooner. If they knew where Saw was, he'd have been a goner. I just mean, I believe Saw believed he was a traitor. And we don't even need to know the truth about it. No, the fume stuff, I didn't like any of that. I just thought it just didn't feel right. The Vel and Cinta stuff wasn't just the kiss either. I feel like the death scene was okay, believable. There's always a senselessness to death in war. But I just didn't feel like a heist of guns made sense. The guns wouldn't arrive before the building was finished. I believe that. I don't think that they would have been putting stuff into the building when it wasn't completely secured and finished. They wouldn't need to steal those guns anyway. You can get guns somewhere else. Does not make sense at all. Instead of a heist, why not just do damage to that building? How do you do that? I don't know, but I just know what happened did not work. At least for me. I didn't like the Coruscant morning show stick. I thought that stood out to me. It bothered me. I just didn't like it. I didn't like seeing so much of the safe house because maybe they put it in there because you were supposed to see how boring and mundane this life was when they weren't on mission. Well, guess what? Seeing all of that made me bored. So I think you could have done the same thing if you gave me less time and, again, lose the drugs. They were setting things up perfectly with a lack of sleep. It was even like the first scene was her losing sleep. I know she said she was taking the drugs for the lack of sleep. I just don't think it was necessary. Just use the sleep deprivation.
You think?
Was there more that I liked than what I didn't like? Well, maybe. But listen, what I didn't like, I really didn't like. Remove all of the kissing. Bix, Cashin, Vel, Cinta. Remove the heavy-handed turn off the light scene. Those have gotta go. All they had to do there was say, we have an hour, and then have one of them turn off the lights. You don't need to hit it home. We don't need all of those points driven home like it was. The substance abuse, not necessary at all. Now, at least don't make it that Saw was enjoying it. If it was affecting him, okay. But I just didn't like. I respect that it's an artistic choice, but someone somewhere at Lucasfilm or Disney should have said, nah, this is off limits. I know Tony Gilroy's come out and said, they really didn't give me any, and I don't care if some people like it. I think there should have been somebody to step in. The BBY 3 story block is going to be my least favorite. At least I hope it is.
We shall see.
This is a low point for the show so far for me. And I'd really be disappointed to see it go lower. Maybe I'll feel differently next week about this block, but I don't think so. And honestly, I'm dreading going through episode by episode for recaps and discussions. I wonder if I'm alone in that way of thinking. So if you want to be part of the discussion, you can send feedback or comments to This Is The Way Podcast's email address, thisisthewaypodcast@gmail.com. Obviously, leaving comments on Spotify, Facebook, Instagram, X, YouTube, it can also work. as it did before last week. But if you're not talking about production value, email might be best, and I might not see it. There's a lot going on, as I mentioned earlier. But thanks for listening to this First Impressions podcast on Andor Season 2's second story arc, 3 BBY. I'm your host, Steve Lascalzo, and this is The Way. May the Force be with you, always.